This is TSE Talks, produced by Trade Show Executive Media Group.
Hi, I'm Gabrielle Weiss, publisher and editor of Trade Show Executive. Thank you for downloading this podcast of Trade Show Executive Talks, or TSE Talks. In honor of our 20th anniversary, TSE Editor-at-Large Danica Tormolin interviews our past publisher and president, Darlene Gudea, our chairman, Richard Simon, and me. I hope you enjoy this special episode of TSE Talks.
Now here's Editor-at-Large Danica Tormolin.
Well, let's get started then with our first question. As the former editor of Trade Show Week, you had a long career in publishing in the exhibition industry. So why did you join Trade Show Executive, and how did that come about?
Actually, it happened at a trade show. Where else? The greatest forum for conducting business. Frankly, Sharif, he's the industry's greatest matchmaker. He invited me to lunch with him and Jim Bracken at E3. And then afterwards, and not coincidentally, we bumped into Rick Simon. So Rick sat down and showed me his latest new project, Trade Show Executive magazine. He had published several issues, and he wanted to add some investment into it and bring me in and make it the leading publication for trade show executives. So he made a compelling case for me to join the company and offered me the resources and complete autonomy to run the business. So after hearing him out, I thought about it. I really miss the industry, but I was hesitant because the U.S. economy was in a recession and the global economy was kind of weak. And I was looking at the competition, Trade Show Week, and you, Danica, Expo Magazine, and the huge financial backing and the access to the geniuses you had in circulation. And I thought, how can I compete? And I don't like to take a job half-heartedly. I like to play only to win. So I talked to some show organizers and I got some great ideas. And I was intrigued by the thought of starting with a clean slate and shaping an information empire that, could create new ideas and help show managers do their job better. So I came up with the idea of a faster, better business plan. And I looked at changing the industry standard for the past 30 years. Trade shows had been analyzed on a quarterly basis. So I brought that to a monthly basis. I looked at a predictive column that would help show organizers predict for the future. And that was the impetus behind trending and spending. We hired an economist and we took industry experts from various segments of the industry, and they forecasted their thoughts. And then, of course, there was Eclipse and events, and Rick came up with some great ideas. And, then I started thinking, CISO's in a few weeks, I better get going. And that's how it all started.
So what year was that?
That was 2002. And it was in June, obviously, and CISO was in August. So it took me a while, but I was really intrigued about starting with a fresh slate and seeing all my friends.
Yeah. Great. You have such a rich history in the industry. What are one or two memories about Trade Show Executive that stand out during your tenure with the magazine?
Well, there's so many to cite. I don't know, it's hard to cite just one or two. So I'll be really brief. I think probably the first editorial award we won just brought increased satisfaction to me. And then each one leading up to the 38th award. Launching events was so exciting. Getting named president was a source of pride for me and my family. Seeing Trade Show executives succeed and seeing my team members grow professionally and earn the income to buy a new home for their families, that really gave me a lot of satisfaction. I was really surprised and touched and humbled by IEA giving me the Industry Legend Award and then the Industry Icon Award. And then on the professional side, I think seeing the expansion of convention centers and seeing advances in technology really was very gratifying. On the travel side, probably going dune bashing on the outskirts of Dubai during an UFI meeting was really exciting, and it was followed by a dinner in the desert at a Bedouin-style camp, experiencing my first overseas exhibition in the plastic show. I think it was in Dusseldorf, the K show, seeing double-decker booths and these elaborate meals prepared by chefs on site. Speaking of food, the fancy food show, of course. I know something unusual was my first trip to a Mexican exhibition. They kind of run on their own kind of schedule. So if the show closing time was 6:00, they didn't turn off the lights if exhibitors were still conducting business. So business continued till 7, 8 o'clock, sometimes longer. kind of reminded me of my first retail job at Hudson's in Detroit. We worked until the last customer left. I kind of like that concept.
That is great. Yes, you have so many memories that I know it's hard to narrow it down to just one or two. So I appreciate you sharing those with us. One of the things that also stands out, I think, is the launch of Gold 100. What was your inspiration for the awards and summit?
Well, my former boss, Danny Phillips, who was a former executive VP at Advanced Star Communications, he gets the credit for conceiving the idea and really pushing me on it. I was a little hesitant because I don't know how to run events. I'm really a classic publisher, but he just kept suggesting, like, take your Gold 100 directory, bring it to life, honor the largest shows. He said the Gold 100 honorees and trade show executive subscribers would be the attendees. And then on the flip side, the Gold 100 service providers and trade show executive advertisers would be the sponsors. So that made sense to me. I have to say, though, I was really nervous about running an event. But it was serendipity that Diane Bjorklund, the former event manager for CISO, was available, and she was really excited about joining the team. We had some early resistance from sponsors who said, "Oh no, not another event. How is this one different?" So we pointed out that all industry events at that time pretty much were just, not just, but they were honoring show organizers for their distinguished service to the industry. And they certainly deserve that. But we wanted to do something a little bit different. This was the first event to honor show managers for their ideas, their management skills, and success in propelling their events to the top of the charts. So we felt, they were overlooked and they deserve recognition. So we put our heads together and we tried to organize a small, intimate event by invitation only, where the industry service providers could network with honorees and other high-powered organizers, and they could swap ideas among themselves as well. The idea caught on, and new events, including the Trade Show Executive Fastest 50 is right around the corner, and Global Direct were launched shortly thereafter.
Great. I didn't realize. So the Gold 100 directory launched first, and that was really the idea behind launching the awards and summit, right?
Correct. You're absolutely right.
So research and data are really an integral part of Trade Show Executive. How and why did you build these resources for our industry? Talk a little bit about launching, the Gold 100 directory and some of the great research that we have from our dashboard and other departments.
Danica, having been in the industry for 40 years, I know keenly that reliable data is integral to making sound business decisions. Intuition is one thing and risk-taking is another, but without reliable data, it's hard to anticipate the future and, jump on the situations that happened in the past. I've always found that show organizers are an outspoken group, and they regularly told me what information they needed and what they wanted and how I should do it. And, I really appreciate that. And, there's an old adage that says, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. So I listened and I crafted new products, and then we delivered. The team delivered.
Why don't you explain some of the research because I think that you were really a trendsetter in that area, using the trending and spending department to get some feedback from industry professionals on what they thought the trends were, and then also pulling in an economist, and then also launching Gold 100 and the research that is behind that and dashboard that's behind that, because that was really and still is groundbreaking, I think, for the industry.
In previous decades, trade shows were recession proof, and we could count on trade shows growing reliably 5, 10, sometimes 20%. I mean, if you go back and look at some of the quarterly reports in Trade Show Week, you're going to see how trade shows grew, 15%. And so when the recession hit in the year 2000 and trade shows started declining, or their growth was slower, and then in some years it was even declining, show managers were surprised and people were losing their jobs. And from my vantage point, I was watching this and I was saying, well, wait a second, it's not that this show manager is not performing, it's because of the economy. And so I tried to document that. And I think the statistical reports were coming out too slowly for show managers to react, because trade shows, are planned years in advance. So I just got this idea, let's take a team of experts in the industry, they put their heads together and came up with a forecast of where they thought the trade shows would be in the next month, the next quarter, and the next year. And it was a moving target, if you want to call it that. And it was adjusted quite a bit, but as trends change and the economy changed. But I think it really helped a lot of show organizers justify why their shows were declining, and they weren't facing this all on their own. So I have to say that's probably one of my proudest products that I developed for Trade Show Executive. And then, the events too, with the help of Diane and Rick Simon, of course, and the team. The Gold 100 and the event division really brought in a lot of revenue for the company as magazine industry started scaling back a little bit. And I think that connecting people face to face certainly added a necessary and important dimension to our product base.
I agree. So another question I have for you, as we all do, I'm sure you made a few mistakes along the way. Looking back now, is there anything that you would redo? Any lessons that you learned that you can share with us?
Well, I guess so. I've been a workaholic since my early grade school years, and I was just determined to succeed by working harder than anyone else. I had an older brother, genius older brother, and I guess I was always competing in his shadow. So, that's, I guess, part of my DNA. And I probably pushed the staff too hard. Okay, not probably. I definitely did. Since I'm retiring, I told a few of them that I would advise my younger self. Danica, are you laughing? I guess you're one of them.
Yeah,
But I told a few of them that I would have advised my younger self to lighten up a bit. What was the reaction? One of them was very gracious. Guess who that is? And said I wasn't that bad, and that my high standards paid off with numerous editorial awards for Trade Show Executive, as well as becoming the #1 publication. Another one said, "You got that right, Gudea. Too late now." And we both laughed. But, I think the takeaway is that all show managers should conduct an honest self-evaluation at least once a year to better themselves.
Good lessons to share there. So, what are the keys to building trust and truthfulness in media today? And what do you think it means to Trade Show Executive?
Well, first of all, hire only the writers and editors that have integrity. And that's why Trade Show Executive is trusted and respected. I was honored to have such an honorable team like you, Danica. You can't imagine my excitement when you agreed to join Trade Show Executive with your incredible credentials and your award path. Just, the love that people have for you and your charisma and how people gravitate to you. Remember, we were competitors, but I had so much respect for you as a competitor. And remember how many times we sat down and had dinner together. I mean, that was unheard of for a person like me, because I am a fierce competitor. But back to the question about, editorial integrity. I'm an old-fashioned journalist, and I really believe in keeping my personal and political opinions to myself and out of editorial decision making. And, I publish articles, with opinions that are contrary to what I really believe. But this magazine is not me. This magazine is for the industry. So I believe in presenting both sides of the story and let the reader draw his or own conclusions rather than inject my opinion or biases. Another key that, when I started out early in my career as a 25-year-old, and I didn't know the trade show industry, and I remember Hub Erickson, the father of Pete Erickson, the founder of Hall Erickson show organizing company. He was such a great mentor to me, and I had to say I was in awe of him and somewhat intimidated. And I interviewed him once, and I just was so unsure that I got all the facts correct. And I ran it by him to verify the information. And he just thought the world that I did something like that. And that kind of encouragement made me do it the rest of my career. I mean, I wouldn't change any article if someone wanted me to put a more glowing forecast. But again, just the major details, the numbers, the statistics, just to make sure that I had that right. And it really saved me from a lot of mistakes. And I made the staff do that, as you know, and it built in much more production time to the magazine. But I think it gave us a stronger track record of accuracy. So that was one way of verifying information. And then when we make mistakes, I don't like to bury corrections on page 89. Everyone makes mistakes. And I think if you fess up to it and correct them fast and prominently, people will respect you more. And then I've always operated under the principle that with the power of press comes incredible responsibility. And, I'd like to repeat that. With the power of the press comes incredible responsibility that we have to really respect.
I would agree. That is one of your legacies, that we do verify the accuracy of content before we publish. And that is really, I think, a cornerstone of our editorial integrity that you implemented for us. So thank you so much for that. I want to talk a little bit about maybe, since you've retired, what do you miss most now that you are retired, and what do you miss the least?
Well, I'm definitely more mellow now that I don't have constant deadlines. Throughout my career, I could never fully unplug from my job, and I often was daydreaming about great new ideas on Thanksgiving dinner and probably drove myself too hard. And it's good to finally focus fully on my family and friends and travel without having to take notes. Boy, I don't miss that. But what I miss most is connecting with industry friends at what I call the trade show family reunions. The Gold Gala, UFI, IAEE, ESCA, and the CISO events, just to name a few. One way I stay connected is through Facebook, but I sure do miss the face-to-face interactions and all the hugs.
Well, everybody misses you. Every time that I'm at an event, everyone asks how you are doing and what you're doing in retirement and how much you're enjoying it. You are definitely missed at industry events.
Well, thank you for that. And I thank everyone in the industry and Rick Simon for making all this possible. He is just terrific to work for, and he has such a brilliant business mind. And he really is such a nice guy and such an idea man. And it's been a pleasure working 40 years in the industry. So thank you very much.
Great. What were some of the news stories that you think changed and shaped the industry over the course of your career with Trade Show Executive?
Oh, I remember I was in labor with my first son, and that was in 1980, February 6, 1980. And it was coming on slowly. And then I got the news that the O'Hare International Exposition Center had named an exclusive contractor. And I had to cover that story. I just had to cover it. And I remember the older woman in the office said, "Honey, that baby's not going to wait." I said, "I got to get this story done." And long story short, I did get that done. That was, pivotal for me. I had mentioned before the expansions of many of the convention centers changing from being just, a box basically, and all the technology that goes into it. I don't remember what year it was, but at RSNA, they did surgery via remote broadcast during a show. I thought that was just spectacular to be able to do that offsite. The advances in registration, the advances in, monitoring trade show flow, many acquisitions. I mean, and I was, and certainly you too, Danica, you were a product of many acquisitions. Started out at Trade Show Week, which was owned by the Show Company International, founded by the late Robert Black, and he was acquired by Connors Exposition Group, which was acquired by Reed. And, and that your company certainly went through a lot of change of hands as well. And we still both prospered despite the change. And we saw that happening also in the service contracting business. Those are some that come to my mind right away.
First of all, I'd like for you to tell us a little bit about the launch of Trade Show Executive and how it came about.
Trade Show Executive is now in its 20th year. Started as a reaction after talking to a number of people in the industry that the existing publications at the time really didn't cover a lot of the topics in any depth. They were more of just a 2-sentence blurb on a yellow piece of paper, and there was really no in-depth articles, any research. So I thought about that for a while, and I said, let me start something. And it kind of grew from there.
What have been some of the key highlights when you think about the magazine of Trade Show Executive?
Well, after the launch, we worked a while with some local publishers, and then we added Darlene in at the advice of some very good friends of mine in the industry, and they were 100% correct to adding Darlene into the mix. And she brought her experience, business acumen, her publishing experience, and it really took us to a better level. The editorial content was professionalized, and the readership grew, into the many thousands on a monthly basis. So we were quite pleased with that. And then, of course, we decided to have events around the magazine, which took it to yet another level of interest from the industry, and which we enjoy today.
Some people may not know, but Trade Show Executive is owned by United. And for those who don't know, what is your role with Trade Show Executive?
Well, after starting it out and then bringing Darlene in, and then later on when Darlene wanted to retire and become grandma, and bringing Gabby in, my role is pretty easy. As the chairman, I try and stay out of everybody's way. I find that if I stay out of their way, they're very creative people that we have working at the magazine, like you. Get out of their way, let them do what they do best, and occasionally they ask my opinion on something, and I try to give them their own opinion back usually. So my role is not you might think.
So you serve as chairman of Trade Show Executive.
I do. I serve as the chairman and the president of the corporation.
Yeah, great. You know, I think it's really interesting how Trade Show Executive has been able to succeed where others, like former competitors in the marketplace, like Trade Week and Expo Magazine, have failed. You know, why do you think that Trade Show Executive has succeeded where those others have failed?
Good editorial content, good people working there, which produces that content, good people being part of the magazine that resonates well with the people in the industry, having good industry relationships with the major associations like IAAE, CISO, et cetera. So I think that those have all aided us. And I think, one of the strengths that all of our team has is we listen. We listen to see what the industry wants, what direction the industry is going in. And we try and keep current and timely. And we don't try and dictate the industry. We try and report the industry.
Yeah. When you reflect on your experience with the magazine, what do you think are some of the key decisions that you made for Trade Show Executive since it launched back in 1999?
The key decisions were hiring Darlene, and then later on hiring Gabrielle, and in between then, starting the events with the Gold 100 and the Fastest 50, which have become great successes. They're attended by a lot of the industry show organizers. We provide them with good educational content, great networking opportunities and social activities. So it works for them, very well. They're very happy with it, and we're very happy with the events. So those are really 4 key things that I was involved in.
Yeah, the events have really changed the magazine and the business overall, making it not only a publishing piece, but also a diversified media group.
Had I discussed starting a magazine with people that know the publishing business, they would have told me that I'm out of my mind and you're just going to lose a ton of money. But since I didn't talk to anybody that knew what they were talking about, I did it anyway. And from that start with just the magazine, our costs weren't very much. We invested a little bit of money. And pretty much we've grown the magazine and everything you just mentioned out of the proceeds from the revenues of the magazine and the events. So I haven't really invested a lot more money after that. I guess I have the luxury of being an owner of a company that can do that without having to report to a lot of people. And I generally get up in the morning and have a board of directors meeting in the shower, and after the shower, that's kind of over, and I know what I'm doing today. We've had financial success and was able to put the money back in and grow the different platforms.
Great. From your vantage point, you've worked in the industry for a number of years before launching Trade Show Executive, but in the last 20 years, when you look back, what are some of the news stories that have changed and shaped the industry during your tenure with Trade Show Executive? What are some of the things that stand out when you look back at the last 20 years that have really changed the industry?
Well, I think in the last 20 years, I think you see a number of things. One is in days of old, we had a 3-legged stool with facilities, show organizers, and contractors all working in concert. And today, sometimes that doesn't always work so well. Sometimes one of these entities is more self-serving, and it kind of upsets those 3-legged stools sometimes. The other big things you've seen in the industry that have changed quite a bit is the invention of private equity. With the private equity groups, their needs are to increase bottom line cash flow. 20 years ago, when it was a lot of associations, while they were, cognizant of their bottom line, and they needed a lot of these associations, this was the largest source of their annual funding to run their association and all their educational efforts. It was not quite as price conscious as it is today. And as the private equity guys buy more and more of the events, it becomes a highly competitive business, very, very price sensitive. So I think those are two of the main things. I mean, you look at the latest acquisitions from Informa with UBM and the acquisitions before that. Going back, I think it probably started. Well, it started a little over more than 20 years ago. It's gotten really prevalent in the last 10 to 15 years. Other than that, the changes in the industry, people are still putting aisle carpet in fuzzy side up. We're still moving boxes in, unpacking them, setting up exhibits, bringing the boxes back in, repacking them, and taking the stuff out. So nothing's changed in the last 50 years pretty much on that front, other than exhibits now are getting a little lighter. The method of manufacturing exhibits so that they're lighter and easier to assemble because of the high cost of shipping and labor. But primarily, I think your biggest change in the industry is all financial.
Yeah. While we're on this subject, do you have a background on the other side in security? Maybe you could talk a little bit about that aspect of the change, because that is a big difference today versus 20 years ago when Trade Show Executive launched.
Well, 20 years ago, 10 years ago, your security largely was people standing at the entrance, checking people's badges to see if they had a badge to come in, and people standing at the freight doors during the move-in to make sure that everything that was coming in and none of it was going out. That was, by and large, 95% of your security. With today's world, we are doing things much differently. A lot of our events we do threat assessments on. The simplified version of a threat assessment is we're searching social media, we're discussing items with the show organizers. There are a number of things that might set off an alarm for us to ramp up certain areas of security. Today we're actually using something that resembles the magnetometer, only it's much more efficient than a magnetometer. So the flow-through rate is like 40 people a minute versus 8 people a minute. People are being screened for weapons. People are having their parcels inspected coming in. Some of the stuff that's brought through the freight doors is being inspected more. And it depends on the venue. It depends on the show, the actual event. Some have a higher propensity for having protest or other adverse action. So security today is no more just checking somebody's badge. You'll see events where we have K9 units there, again, screening people for weapons. So the world is just a different place. And I foresee in the next 10 years, that will become the norm versus the once in a while. This is going to become the norm, especially with the new equipment that we've got now, where the flow through, the event organizer is very worried about long lines of people trying to enter the show floor, and we pretty well cured that problem. So now, I mean, we did it at last Expo, and everybody coming on the show floor was screened, and most people didn't even know it, because they just walked right by the Metrosend unit, and if it didn't alarm, we just let them keep coming. And they're walking at a normal pace versus like you've been to the airport and have to step through the magnetometer and stop and wait for the person in front of you. So with new technology, more screening will be the norm. People are becoming more sensitive because of the issues of the world and the events of the world that have occurred, becoming much more security conscious.
Yeah, great. Well, that is a big shift from 20 years ago. Let's talk a little bit about where you see Trade Show Executive in the short and long term. Maybe give us some projections about the future of Trade Show Executive.
Well, we're starting to do some international outreach with some of the venues and show organizers from different parts of the world. We held an event a while back connecting the show organizers with the foreign venues. If they were looking to expand into different countries, we're going to do that again, and that'll probably be an annual event, bringing show organizers, U.S. show organizers, together with foreign venues. So I see a little bit of international reach on our part, and I also see perhaps a stepped up educational component at our two events for educating the new people in the industry. I think that one of the things we're doing now is reaching out to the new people in the industry. Don't forget, when we started years ago, when I say we, predating you, Danica, because you're only 10 years old.
Yeah.
The people that became the show organizer, or was the guy who was in the business, often working for a general contractor, and he probably had a high school diploma, and he could look good in a shirt and tie, and he could read and write, or her. Mostly males back then. Today, you've got degreed programs from a number of universities on event and trade show management. So you're getting a more educated person, not only their basic education, but educated in this field. And my comparison is, it's kind of like getting out of law school or medical school. You've got all this institutional learning. Now you have to get some practical experience. And so I think that's where Trade Show Executive is going to help, bringing people into the industry, the new people in the industry, the next generation, and helping prepare them to work for the big show organizers by showing them what we have done and what we are doing, and seeing what they think can be done better in the future.
And also doing maybe some new initiatives like this one, trying to do podcast or more digital offerings.
We are, and that's pretty much in the hands of Gabby and you and other people in the magazine. As you know, I'm technically challenged. It was a big feat for me to get on this this call today. Amazed I did it.
You did it. I think it might be interesting to talk a little bit about some of your favorite memories when you look back on your experiences with the magazine and also with the events with Gold 100 and Fastest 50. I know you always host a chairman's dinner at our events, and you're also very involved in our golf tournaments. So maybe talk about some of your favorite memories that stand out.
From the magazine part, growing the magazine has been very eventful. As far as things that have happened in the industry over the years, watching new people come into the industry and becoming friends with them. I often tell people, because most of the people we work with, you can call them a customer, most of them have become friends. So I tell people I don't have a job, I have a lifestyle. I get up in the morning and I'm talking to my friends, and we happen to do business together. So that's been really great thing to become friends with most of these people.
I just wanted to go back and see if there were any other memories that stand out from the golf tournaments or from our events.
Well, the golf tournament, as you know, I don't play golf, but I do get on a cart and drive around and try and aggravate everybody. And I do a pretty good job of that. The one tournament, we were on a par 3 hole, and it was a cash prize hole. I think we were offering $10,000 for a hole-in-one. So I decided to increase the tension at the tee box by offering, it was 5 or 6 foursomes that came up one after the other. If they even put the ball on the green, we'd give them $100. And 24 golfers came up, and 24 golfers all hit the ball. And as you know, in the industry, we have some people that play golf that pride themselves as like really good golfers. We won't mention any names. And these folks, when I looked them in the eye and said I was going to give them a whole $100, and these people are not financially challenged either, I was going to give them $100 cash on the spot if they could put it on the green. And this green, by the way, had its own zip code. These guys hit it in the water. They hit it, they did. Nobody put it on the green. 24 up, 24 down. And a $100 bill was still in my pocket. That made for a lot of laughs that evening.
Yes. And so you do always sponsor a hole-in-one for our Gold 100 golf tournament. A hole-in-one will get you get $10,000. And has anybody won that in the history of your sponsorship of that?
So far, the $10,000 is still safe. Nobody has claimed it yet. And it's only been, I forget how many
Great.
years, but it's been quite a few.
Well, and everyone will have a shot coming up again in September, correct?
Absolutely. We look forward to seeing everybody at the Gold 100 and put the $10,000 prize. We also put a new car out there as well. And so far, nobody's gotten the car and nobody's gotten the 10,000. But we look forward to someday them getting something.
Well, thank you so much, Rick, for your time today.
Thank you.
You joined Trade Show Executive in 2016 with a strong background in communications and journalism, but no experience in the trade show industry. Following a legacy like Darlene Goudeau, what's been your biggest challenge so far?
My biggest challenge and my biggest concern after taking after Darlene was to really maintain the gift that she gave us, which is a very strong media asset. I wanted to not only make sure that the magazine was at the level that she had brought it to, but to continue to achieve the type of greatness that our readership has become used to and help to buttress or maybe even improve our brand equity with our readership. So I think that was the most terrifying thing for me, Danica, was to not lose any ground Darlene had given the magazine and the enterprise. I will also say, in making it my own, I certainly have a very strong vision for Trade Show Executive magazine, the enterprise, our events, all of our assets, including research. That has certainly been one of the biggest challenges for me, is to have that vision, talk to you, talk to the team about it, and see how we can make some of those things happen. Also, I'm different than Darlene. So another big challenge and something that I think all of us had in going into this endeavor with me taking over was, the change in leadership and, sharing that vision and really hearing from all of you about what the magazine is to you, where you would like to see it, and then where we could really combine those efforts and kind of make it where we are today. So those were my biggest fears, my biggest challenges. Still, some of those things are with me today as we continue to move Trade Show Executive along.
Great. Well, Trade Show Executive has really grown and flourished during the last 3 years under your leadership. What are some of the accomplishments that you are most proud of during your tenure?
Oh, well, certainly being able to launch some new initiatives, in particular with our trailblazers, our Trade Show Executive Trailblazers, which is us as a brand extending our hand to the up-and-comers in our industry and giving them a platform to be recognized and to also hear what the next generation of C-suite executives is looking at, thinking about, and starting to hear their voice. I really need to thank Freeman and Bob Priestek for their sponsorship of this initiative in 2018 and for United Service Companies for their generous sponsorship at this year's event. And then, of course, really responding to some of the data that was given to us from CISO and IAEE with the Women to Watch initiative and the article that you wrote, Danica, with our survey that we did with IAEE on the salary survey, and to kind of shine a light on the fact that women are entering our industry at a rapid clip, and recognizing, that they're going to be our readership, a large part of our readership in the future. And so our Women to Watch program was something that I really am very proud of. Getting an initiative off the ground is not easy. We put that together. I would say our team put that together really quickly, responded to that idea in rapid fire. And the response that we got from the field and our subscribers was incredibly encouraging and supportive. When I took this idea to Rick Simon, it was an immediate hit. We knew this was going to be good for the magazine and the industry. And he sponsored it. At the event, he made some poignant comments about our changing industry, and it was great to have that support as well and embrace this industry trend. There are a lot of things that I'm really proud of. It's hard to focus on just a few, but I will also say, the editorial team has just knocked it out of the park, period. I mean, we last year won 7 journalism awards. Danica, you take home quite a few awards for us every year now. You got another regional this year. And then, of course, with the national award of being recognized by the American Society of Business Publication Editors, ASB, being one of the top 10 B2B magazines in the nation. I can't tell you how incredibly proud I am of the team for bringing that home for us. And I think it says a lot about how we've come together as a team where we can, produce that type of high standard, high caliber work. I think also in looking at a trade show executive, there are a lot of items and initiatives that are underway that we just haven't launched yet. And seeing the team, come together, work together, whether it's on the advertising front with Linda Brow leading that team, editorial, where we are continuing to come up with new ideas, different ideas to right on the edge for our industry and be that publication and hub of communication for our trade industry, or our research as we're starting to redefine how we can support the magazine and even our readership. I could go on, but I have to say, the team pulling together, working, I say, in harmony more than I've seen in the last 3 years. To see us growing together is really, I would say, the pinnacle of what I'm most proud of. I think there are a lot of great things to come from it.
Great. If you don't mind, I'd like to back up a little bit and talk a little bit more detail about the Trailblazers program. If you think about it, some people that are listening probably aren't familiar with it. So I want to make sure that they understand what our Trailblazers program is. So tell us a little bit about it and when those awards are given out and what it means.
Sure. Our Trade Show Executive Trailblazers program was launched last year alongside our Trade Show Executive Fastest 50 Awards and Summit. So this is a program that we developed where we wanted to shine a light on up-and-comers, as I was saying, and we aligned that with our Fastest 50 events so that we could, really shine a light on these up-and-comers. And really to get to the gist or the nut of what the program is it was devised, it was developed to acknowledge and celebrate up-and-comers in our industry for their efforts in creating something new or taking a new approach to a show or really bringing something of substance to their organization or their show. These people that are acknowledged really are trailblazers or pioneers in the non-executive ranks who are, I guess we can say, blazing a new path, excuse the pun, and have the results to show for their hard work. So some of our trailblazers in the past have created or added something new to a VIP program, which really had demonstrable results financially and with attendee acquisition. I'm specifically thinking of Melissa Schiller from the SHOT Show, or Russell Kernel from the licensing show with Informa. He really packed a punch with his social media concepts to help improve accessibility and exposure to that show, where it was so successful that that team really broadened what he was doing and added some components to their show just to accommodate the really incredible results that he brought from the social media perspective. This year, we're expanding it. We have a few more trailblazers that we'll be acknowledging at our upcoming Fastest 50. So one of our trailblazers in the 2019 year who is receiving an award, the show had a turnover in their marketing team in another country, in Mexico. And so this individual stepped up and took care of the marketing and public relations component of the show in another country. And they had double-digit growth in attendees and exhibitors. And that has contributed to the work that this young woman did. So these are wow. People. Yes, I know. It's pretty. So these are really, and this is going on, I think, so much in our industry. We are an industry of innovators, and when given the opportunity, our non-executive ranks are looking for those opportunities for exposure and chances to really flex their arms and show what they can do. The Trailblazers Award not only gives the opportunity to kind of demonstrate what's going on in the field and maybe inspire similar colleagues in the same positions at other shows, but also, to inspire management to kind of show, these are what our next generation of trade show organizers have and are giving to shows everywhere. Especially something to consider is, we hear a lot about it in mainstream media, but, the silver tsunami, we're going to be having, it's predicted, a large amount of retirement coming up. And then we also have the influx of millennials and that kind of thing. So we're going to see some shifts in our demographic of workers throughout America and most likely our industry too. So I think this particular initiative helps to bridge that gap, create some communication around it, to kind of see the type of talent that's on the horizon. And I like to think of it that way, but that's some of what the Trailblazers are about. I invite anybody who's listening to look it up. We put it alongside our Fastest 50. We look at Fastest 50 as really a lot of innovative people doing a lot of things to see growth. And so we thought that it'd be a good base for our Trailblazers. And of course, if anybody has any questions, I'm always available. So thank you for asking that question, Danica.
Great. I also want to talk a little bit about Women to Watch, since it was an award-winning piece, and it is one of the highlights of one of your accomplishments with Trade Show Executive. So tell us a little bit about the Women to Watch program and the recognition that those women get from Trade Show Executive.
Right. So thank you for asking me. So Women to Watch, I think, is an important initiative on a few fronts, and I think it helps the industry on a few fronts. So we had received some findings, data findings from CISO and IAE about women entering the workforce at an incredible clip. I mean, double digits. But it also, some of this data that we were given demonstrated that we have women in the C-suite at about 9%, while 63% of the industry is made of female employees. And that number is growing. So, one of the barriers that these women felt were exposure, education, and just having the ability to get coaching as to some barrier in rising through the ranks in our industry. Also, since we know that women are entering our workforce at such a big rate, we wanted to acknowledge, first of all, that this is going on. But then secondly, we want to make sure that maybe in an industry that has been dominated by men, to kind of bring a light to these women and to give exposure to both the women are coming into the industry, but also the industry more exposure to women. Who are they? What are they about? What are they doing in their different areas? So we thought by reaching out into the field of our readership and attendees of events and just kind of say, who are your women to watch? And again, these are up and comers, but specifically from the female ranks, and really kind of understand what they're bringing to the team. And so unlike Trailblazers, which is, mixed gender, it's genderless, we added in a component to the Women to Watch, so we wanted them to be a major contributor to the team, demonstrable, and or what leadership skills are they bringing? Someone that really comes to mind, we had so many nominations and we really could only pick just a few by the way that we designed the program. Someone that comes to mind is Shari Sally from CTA, and what Denise Medved wrote about her was just so touching. She's risen through the ranks. She came on when Denise came on board. She was in a different role and came more onto the trade show role. And it really, through leadership and training of others and helping the team as a whole along, Shari had risen through the ranks on her own merit and skill, but also because she was a team builder. And I think that's just such an important thing to shine a light on, is that team building spirit. We definitely, Trade Show Executive magazine, I like to think that whether we had a publisher who's male or female, would have seen the business case for creating this important initiative. And also it shined a light on it in the same way. I mean, I make it a point, and I think Darlene did too, and I think anybody worth their salt would, it's not about bringing politics into journalism, but looking on the horizon and making a vision for your business interest and seeing that this is a valuable endeavor. With that being said, I didn't want to have this as like, here's a trophy. We wanted to make it a little bit more meaningful than that. So, we put more work into it. And so these particular Women to Watch and the structure of this award is, it's exposure, it's education, then it's also getting some coaching. We got an executive coach on board, Angela Scalpello, who is a former senior vice president of organizational development at UBM and is now a strategy advisor and career coach. And we also put together an executive program for the women. So in terms of getting exposure to the industry and being seen, we put it in place that they came to the Gold 100, our flagship event, our mainstay event, and you received an award on stage. We provided editorial so that people could know who they were and what they've done to garner such recognition. We got them the education that they received through the format of our educational summit at Gold 100. But also through the executive coaching. Angela was kind enough to give us a few hours with each woman for individual coaching. Then also at the Gold 100 program, we teamed them up with another executive, Lene Gore, Tony Kalenka, Tom Sindrick, people in the industry that would really be able to introduce them to people, make them feel at home, but also create a networking opportunity that would last them their career, a friend. And so we put that together, and we had so many of our high-ranking executives from our Gold 100 show that were more than willing to extend a hand and bring these women into their fold and part of their network. So it was substantive. That's the thing. We didn't want to just say, here's another women's event, here's another trophy. We wanted to make sure that it was meaningful for these women.
Well, I think in this era of Me Too, and also in what we found from our compensation trend study with the pay gap between males and females in this industry, it really is an important, timely issue to address for the industry.
And the thing about that was, Danica, at the time, we didn't have the results from that salary study. Right. If you recall, we had decided to go forward with the Women to Watch program just on the basis of the fact that so many women are entering our industry. We wanted to celebrate that fact. It wasn't until later on that we got the data from that salary survey where we realized that there was a 70+% disparity once we reached the executive level and above. And, I just don't think that it's that different from a lot of other organizations. In fact, I think that we trended probably a little bit. Our industry wasn't the most egregious, which, is something to think about. I will also say that the majority of the submissions that we received for the Women to Watch program came from male managers, which I thought was an interesting observation.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk a little bit, we can talk real briefly about Magazine of the Year, because I think that is an important recognition that we got earlier this year. So tell us a little bit about what that means.
So to be voted one of the top 10 magazines of the year by the American Society of Business Publication Editors, ASBE, is an incredible feat. I mean, this is a peer-reviewed exercise. So in other words, other business editors from B2B magazines throughout the country are reviewing our material. And they, like any good editor, they are not easy. And so when they were reviewing our magazine on a number of fronts, design, how is it helpful to the industry? How does it differentiate itself? Is it bringing in what's going on in the rest of the world, like outside of the B2B, and zeroing it in into the industry where applicable? Our Women to Watch article was notable for that. But the real thing for me and the true victory for me is the other magazines that we were up against are phenomenal and have a tradition of winning top awards. So for the first time, Trade Show Executive entered in this auspicious category. And I felt strongly about it. I felt that we had a very strong case. I feel that we do an excellent job with our editorial, and there's no reason why we shouldn't go ahead and apply for it. So when we got nominated for Magazine of the Year, and I think we were just all so elated, including our chairman, Rick Simon, and our previous, and Darlene Gudea. I mean, it was just a really big moment for us. And then to win for top 10 magazine, B2B magazine in the nation, I think what it did for the team, it just put us on another level. It was like a shot in the arm, and I feel like we're just totally going after it now. It was just such a great recognition for us. And I think well-deserved.
Good. Congratulations again.
Thank you. Congratulations to you too. Yeah.
Okay, so in this era of fake news and information overload from really endless print, digital, video, and social media channels, what do you think the role of business media and trade show executive play today, in your opinion? And then what do you think is our secret sauce?
Sure. So I think more than ever, the call for good journalism for B2Bs is here. Like, this is the time when we absolutely must be a beacon of good journalism for our readership. There's so much misinformation. There are misinformation campaigns going on every day, both sides, and it influences our market as well. With that being said, we have the opportunity at Trade Show Executive, and I would say any B2B, to be that community, to be that hub for a community where you're going to get information that is verified. You're going to get information that is good journalism, verified information, where we can, in the midst of a lot of information clutter, that's going on a 24-hour news basis, be that place where information about our particular industry is meaningful, accessible, and true. And so I think when we're all just kind of going in our daily lives and our business, we can have that trusted source of, I'm an executive, I need to understand what happened last month, or where we're trending for the year, or trade shows in general, whether that's through our dashboard or looking ahead, with our Zoom calendar, or understanding what were the done deals in that column, or seeing what are exhibitors doing, what are some of our feature articles, like the article you just did, Danica, in the July issue for fear of missing out, and how chief marketing officers are looking at how they spend their money with exhibiting. We can go ahead and get into the weeds of a particular issue that is important to our industry and extricate those nuggets for our executives, for our readership, that will help them in making decisions and be trusted to do so. This is a trust relationship that we have with our readership. So in an era of fake news, I would look to those artisans and say, you're missing the buck. The truth in journalism is really where it's at. And that's why we continue to do so well. And that is editorial integrity is absolutely top notch in every decision that I make, and certainly that of my team.
Great. I think we really serve as a filter for our readers of sifting through what is most important of all the information that's out there, what they really need to know. And like you said, be a trusted and verified source for the executives in our industry.
I absolutely agree with you. I mean, through some of our products, especially like Editor's Picks, and thinking about all the information that can come at us throughout the day, to be that filter, to be able to sift through all of the information that goes on during the week and then pluck those particular articles and information that we understand from our perch where we sit at the center of whether it's associations, independents, small, large. We're kind of at the center of all of that activity as a news organization, watching that go on. And so it is our job to have the pulse of this industry. And so we can filter that information through and hopefully remove the clutter and be of service to our readership and give them impactful news stories that influence their day, their week, their month.
Great. Well, tell us a little bit about how Trade Show Executive is trending. What's working and what's not, in your opinion?
Sure. So I think our editorial is just knocking it out of the park. I think that we're continuing to get out there and really think about, how are things being defined in the trade show sector? How are organizers, what's the next big thing? I mean, is it festivalization? What is going on and how can we be of service in collecting this information and reporting on it for our organizations and our readership? I feel like we're doing very well with that, as well as developing, curating content for our events. And I think that we can also continue to improve on that. I don't think that's something that you ever really win at. I think that when it comes to editorial, it's good to come at it from open eyes and open-mindedness, like what's changing. Frankly, I think what is not working for us at the moment is, I would really like to capitalize on more of our digital assets. I want to be able to really break down barriers. Everybody takes in information differently, whether it's audio, like here we are doing a podcast. For some, it's a visual. For others, I want a deeper dive and I want long form journalism. And then others, I want to just a snapshot, a news brief. And so I think that we as an organization can move more in that direction and meet our readership where they're at. Really break down those boundaries. Where something doesn't work in print or digital, can we bring that to the stage at one of our events? Vice versa. And how can we have all of that working together so it's interwoven? So those are some of the concepts that, we're definitely working on in our workshop and trying to devise different ways that we can use communication vehicles through journalism, our journalistic instincts, and having a pulse on this industry as a media organization, a B2B media organization that's centered in the midst of all the activity reporting. How can we do that better and be of maximum service to our industry?
Great, thank you. Okay, I have one final question for you. Let's talk about what's next for Trade Show Executive. You mentioned some initiatives that you're working on, and maybe you could give us a sneak peek into what some of your plans are for the short and long term.
Well, Danica, I don't want to give away our strategic plan, but there's so many things. It's hard. There are so many things that we are incubating. So, certainly we have our Global Direct program, and we have data both from our own research as well as UFI and that organization and IAEE, and just from, like I said, from our readership. There's a certain percentage of our readers that are going global and want to launch globally. So, we're trying our very best to create a platform that will be of service to that group and to also report on that. We want to debunk the mythology around going global, but not take away from the things that are real, like how do you work with partners in another country and, not get ripped off, and what are the best practices, so really help to open that up, and that's a major initiative as we go forward, and then we want to really try and look at why do we do what we do, and, and it's really like, to me, trade shows are such a wonderful marketplace for commerce. In fact, launching new brands, new ideas, we create these platforms not only to do big business, but also to create and generate more business, to launch products. So we are incubating a column called Launchpad, and I hope that will be out pretty soon. Then also just continuing to expand on our coverage of the new and innovative ideas that are coming from our trade show organizers throughout the nation, and what they're bringing to exhibitors and audiences to keep it live, to keep it more experiential, to work with augmented reality, artificial intelligence, data, all of these new concepts, and maybe not so new concepts, but how we're using them differently to really continue to attract and grow. The trade show industry as a whole is just, it continues to grow and it continues to bring profits. And then, we also see a lot of mergers and acquisitions. And what does that mean? So we are definitely thinking about these things and thinking about new ways that we can offer coverage to really make sure that we are right there at the cutting edge, along with some of our top talent, to bring and publicize those achievements to the rest of the industry so that we can continue to be innovative. Whether you're in Forma Markets or a newer trade show like MJ BizCon, how can we continue to be of service to everybody in our industry and keep us all, moving forward and do our part? That's all that a media group can do is do our part to share information so that people are equipped with the latest and greatest that's going on.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time and sharing your views and your outlook for the magazine with our audience here today.
Great. And I really appreciate the opportunity. It's just been a whirlwind. I'm eternally grateful to Rick and Darlene for giving me this opportunity. And certainly, our readership that, continues to grow and, come to our events. And it's just been a wonderful experience. And this great team, I just very grateful. So thank you, Danica, and thank you for the great work that you do and your contributions as well.
You are welcome.
This has been TSE Talks, produced by Trade Show Executive Media Group.
Thank you for listening to this edition of TSE Talks. I hope you will join us next month for a talk with one of our industry's leaders and legends for our Power Lunch interview. In the meantime, please visit us online at tradeshowexecutive.com or in print for the rest of this story and for our trade show industry-focused award-winning content.